Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Hind. I love that no one tries to pronounce my last name, and I don't blame them. It's Hind. So I'm going to break it down into 4 parts. My journey is so different from what I've heard so far, so it's really fascinating. It's also filled with a bunch of miracles and small things that I won't possibly be able to say all right now. But if afterwards you wanted to ask more questions, I'm happy to do that. So I am a school teacher, and all right, so sorry, my kidney's there. Yes, that is a picture of my kidney. All right, yes, her name is Matilda. I'll get to that in a second. My recipient was one of my coworkers. I'm a school teacher at Central High School in Philadelphia, and I was the union rep, and she was having to leave because she was 29 years old, and she had just found out that she had IgA nephropathy, I think is what it's called, and her kidneys were done, and she already needed full-time dialysis, and she couldn't work anymore with kids because, you know, they're gross. Teenagers are gross. So she had to leave, and I was trying to tell her how to preserve her bonus. And she says to me, yeah, I need a bonus to get a billboard. Now, at the time, I didn't know she needed a donor, and I was like, if you're losing your job, I don't think buying a billboard is like the thing to do, but to each his own. And she must have seen my face and said, oh, I need a kidney. I'm in kidney failure, I need a kidney. And my mother died at 29, and I'm 29, and I'm scared. And she said, no one in my family can donate. No one's eligible. And so I left. I got in my car. She told me she was working with Temple. I got in my car, and I'm a woman of faith, and I felt God very clearly just said, go, call. And I called Temple right then in the car, and I spoke to someone on the phone, and they very briefly told me what the process would be. And I said, listen, before I talk to my husband, I've only been married 3 years. I was like, I think he might think I'm crazy if I come home and tell him this. What's the risk to me? And they very clearly said, in general, no NSAIDs, right? I'm a Tylenol girl anyway. They said, if you get pregnant, it'd likely be, it could be complicated. I'm 45. I'm like, nope, good, we're good. Check that off. And then they said, and you shouldn't start a contact sport. I was like, all right, we're in the clear. I think that's great. I went home, I talked to my husband. He is very supportive. He's like, let's pray about it. We prayed about it, and it was just like, they're gonna tell me if I can't do it. They're gonna tell me if I can't do it. So I'm just gonna do it, and we'll see what happens. So now I'm gonna talk about the process. We did it super fast. John's my guy, he's my coordinator. So I met John, and we started the process. I said, I'm a school teacher, let's do it fast on days off, and Temple's super close to my school. So we started in September, I think, and we transplanted in January. And we got our final go-ahead in the middle of December, and I got to call my recipient and tell her we were a match and good to go right before Christmas, which was really fantastic. The process for me was a little bit different. So for those of you that are medical professionals, I don't mean to insult you. For those of you that are laymen like myself, I'm a beast of a woman. I had to do extra things because they were concerned about my weight, straight up. I've been told my weight is a concern since I was 11 years old. It was not new information to me that it would be a concern, but I had been on my own health journey, and I knew I was healthy. And I was like, I dare you to find something wrong with me. And from the go, nothing was wrong with me, but they kept asking me to do additional tests. So I did like a kidney function test, I did a glucose tolerance test, and John was always in my corner, and Dr. C, the nephrologist, started calling me a Viking, so that became like the running joke. He said I looked like I was from Norway and I should visit if I hadn't. And everything always came back good, and I was a perfect match for my recipient, which was kind of uncanny because we're not related at all. And so that's us. That's the day after we transplanted, there on the left. And post-op was pretty easy. She was in ICU a little longer. She struggled more with anesthesia, but she was okay otherwise. My kidney started producing urine before they finished sewing it in. Viking kidney. Her name is Matilda, which means brave in battle. That's the cake my coworkers got me right before I went out on leave. There's my kidney, Matilda. Some people get really freaked out by that, but I think it's fascinating. And that's our 1 year Matilda's birthday party in the top right corner. So we're hitting Matilda's third birthday. It would be this January. Post-op, I had a little bit of a hiccup. I had a hematoma that I had to have evacuated 1 week after donation surgery, but I still recovered in 4 weeks. The school district doctor said, please stay away for 6 weeks. I said, okay. Having never had children, I had a lot of sick leave, and it was fine. So I went back 6 weeks later, but I was good after 4 weeks. I agree, fatigue was probably the biggest challenge. 3 months after donation, I walked in the MS walk, 3 miles. I walked my dog 3 days after surgery. And the progress is kind of where I want to. It's amazing. Our kidney function, mine and hers, have improved every year for the last 3 years, which they say is not necessarily typical. My numbers now for my one kidney are the same as they were when I had two, including my EF, that, okay? It's just 60, which they told me like not to expect, so I think that's fascinating. And my recipient can't come back to teaching, again, those dirty teenagers, but she does a ton of advocacy work. There's actually a lot of states in America that don't protect donors as well as others. And Pennsylvania really only became hardcore in protecting donors in 2021, which is not that long ago. So she does a lot of work on Capitol Hill. She travels with her husband, and she's living an incredible life. She's very happy, and so am I. And to celebrate a year, I also got a tattoo over one of my scars, Luke 8:28. It's the story of the woman who was bleeding and touched the cloak of Jesus. And verse 8:48 says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." I think the progress for me is that it reaffirmed I am healthy, even though I look different. And my life is better for having done this. It wasn't just that her life is better because I chose to do it. Oh, clicker.
Okay. I just want, Sue did such a great job that my slides are somewhat redundant, so I'll go over them quickly, but I'll talk a little bit more about getting started, because I think that's maybe the most difficult part for a lot of people, like taking that first step, as it is in anything, any project you're working on. We did have to get over Kristen's shyness, but
It's terrible.
we got through it. So I can't read my slides from here, but basically the first thing people need to do is, if you're interested, you need to make a call. Now with Temple, I put the number up there. You make the call. You'll speak to someone in the transplant program, and they'll just really take some very basic information off of anyone who is potentially interested in donating. Name, date of birth. We do like to know who you want to donate to, and it's nice if you know their date of birth, just so we know the kidney's going to the right person. And then really, once that call comes in, an email goes out to the transplant team, the living donor team, our financial team. Basically, just opens up a chart, and with that, and then my teammate Carly is our navigator. She'll reach out to that potential donor, just give them a little overview, ask them answer any questions that they may have. And this has actually changed since Kristen starts. Kristen might think that's not what happened for me, but we're constantly trying to refine the program and make it easier and more efficient. So now we're electronic. Carly will send them a link, and that link has a detailed medical questionnaire that they'll fill out at their leisure. And it is very detailed. And then if they complete that questionnaire, that will trigger two things to happen. They'll get labs sent to them via email, very basic labs, and they'll get a 24-hour urine container sent to their house. And we tell them, don't do the labs till you get the 24-hour urine container. That's a very important initial test. They'll complete those preliminary tests, and once those tests are completed, then either Beth, Carly, and I, who are the living donor team, will see those results. We'll meet together and see, is there anything prohibitive from that patient moving forward? And if there is, we'll call them. We might say, hey, you know what, you have protein in your urine or something. You might want to go see your PCP. And if there's nothing there, then we'll move them along in the process. So really, that's the most important thing. Once they get going and they're plugged in with the team, I think things move along pretty quickly. Here. And then Sue did a great job of talking about the testing. Also, I think Sammy was talking about the testing as well. The donors run very parallel really to recipients in that it's a multidisciplinary team. Donors need to speak to a transplant a pharmacist, a transplant social worker, a transplant nurse. We have an added person in our team. It's called an independent living donor advocate. And so a lot of it is interviews and, kind of psychosocially making sure that the patient knows, really knows what they're getting themselves into. And of course, there's the physical testing. And much like, as Sue said, we kind of have we don't call it a donor day, but we try to get them in one day and get all the remaining testing done, let them meet with a transplant surgeon and a transplant nephrologist. We get a lot of great information. I hope that the patients feel that's a really beneficial day, the potential donors for them. They get a lot of good information. And then it's possible that at the end of that time, once we give about a week for all those test results to come in, Beth and I will review all those results, and we may be able to present the patient to a living donor selection committee, much as recipients are presented to a committee that decides whether they are eligible to be a recipient. Donors are presented to a multidisciplinary committee to see if they're eligible to be donors. Beth and I will call them back and let them know if they're approved. Great. We talk about what pathway we're going to go down, timelines, things such as that. If they're not approved, we'll let them know why. Donors may not be approved and doesn't necessarily mean they're not healthy. It just may mean that we don't feel that they're healthy enough to live with one kidney. Dr. C meets with patients and he tells them something they may find strange. He says, my job is to find a reason for you not to donate. And that's true. We have to protect the donor. So we review those things with them. Once in a while, we find people do have some medical problems, and we say, you don't need to give a kidney, you need to go see a doctor. And although that's frightening news for them, it's also good news because they're getting out ahead of something. So that's kind of the process at a very high level of where we're going. And I think, I'll turn it over to Joe, I believe.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name is Joe Paparo, and I represent Gift of Life Donor Program. Gift of Life is the area's organ procurement organization. So my expertise isn't really in living donation, it's more so in the deceased donation process. So the way that it works, for those that may be unfamiliar, there's about 50 or so OPOs spread throughout the United States. And so it's all broken out by geography. You can see Gift of Life's territory covered there. And so in that territory, we as the OPO kind of serve as, how I want you to think about it is kind of the middleman, kind of the connector between where the organ donation is going to take place and where the transplant is going to take place. And I'll go over some of our roles here in a second, but in that area that we cover 120 different hospitals, and our organ procurement organization has been one of the leaders in the United States over the course of really our entire 50-year existence in hoping to get folks off the transplant waiting list every day. And we do partner with Temple quite a bit. My role as the Senior Hospital Services Coordinator is I actually work throughout the Temple Health System with the care teams, with the ICU teams, making sure that the nurses and the physicians are aware of what their roles and responsibilities are when it comes to supporting organ donation and transplantation. And so just a couple of quick things here to share about the role of Gift of Life. So we are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to take the referrals from the healthcare team when there may be a candidate for organ donation. So a big part of my job is actually teaching the nurses and physicians about when to refer their patient who is dying in the hospital to us to start an evaluation to determine if they can donate their organs to someone else. So at that point, again, we begin that evaluation process of that patient who's dying in the hospital. From there, we're working with the care team, and we're trying to figure out when the best time to have that conversation with the family about donating is. Because again, they're losing a loved one in the hospital. It's one of the hardest times of their life. And it's the responsibility of our team to offer that donation opportunity to that family. And so you might be surprised to learn that that's not actually the role of the nurse or the physician in the hospital. It's our role as the organ procurement organization to be leading those conversations with the family. Now, the nurses and the docs, of course, help us with those conversations. They may help to facilitate them. They might sit in on those conversations from time to time, but it's really our trained team who is having those conversations with the family, making sure that they're given all the information and can hopefully say yes to support donation. From there, once the family says yes to donating, hopefully, we will then work with the care team to help to allocate those organs. So where are the kidneys going to go, where the liver going to go, where the heart, the lungs, right? And we're calling really all throughout the United States, placing those organs for transplantation, and that's an important role of our team. So once the organs are all placed for transplant, it's our team that also sets up the operating room. And so we'll work and coordinate that. Maybe if the donor is at Temple, we'll have folks flying in from really throughout the East Coast. Could be some of our surgeons that are doing the recovery on behalf of some of the patients that are getting a transplant. And so we will set up that surgical recovery from beginning to end. And then after the fact, we actually have a very important member of our team, which is our family services department, who follow up with our donor families. We are actually in the season of our Living Legacy ceremonies right now, where we're actually bringing back previous donor families to honor their loved ones right now as we get closer to the holidays. But we really have a very well-rounded organization. I'm joined here today by my colleague Lisa, who's in our transplant pregnancy registry, where they actually do research on women who are trying to get pregnant and men who are hoping to help people get pregnant, and those folks and how that intersects with transplantation and donation. And we're also joined today by our colleagues from Gift of Life Howie's House, which is an organization, a nonprofit that we run, where folks can come to Philadelphia and have an affordable place to stay while they're in their transplant journey for affordable cost. So that's really what your local OPO does. So again, I can answer questions about anything related to that process in the hospital for a deceased donor.
So thank you so much, all three of you. I have a question each for you, but we start with John. We've heard from two donors here, and what does Temple do for the donors after the first year of transplant? Do you continue to follow the donors and support them and do research on how their bodies recover and continue to operate?
Sure. The routine is 6 months, 12 months, 24 months after surgery. We ask the donor to follow up with us, and we reach out to them. Obviously, you can't make people follow up, but we reach out to them. Carly will send them an email and say, "Hey, Kristen, it's been a year since your transplant. We wanted to check in." It's very basic, very easy. A lot of our donors don't live around the corner, so we'll give them a list of labs that we want them to get completed, and we really encourage their PCPs to be involved. So that the PCPs can kind of get on board with the new Kristen, whose labs are going to change. So we ask the donors to, hey, reach out to your PCP. Let's try to get these labs done. We want an updated blood pressure. We want an updated weight. We send them a pretty basic questionnaire, just overall about their health. Did you have any hospitalizations in the past year? And we ask them to give this feedback back to us. We ask them to share those labs with us. We'll review them. Certainly, if the donor has any concerns, come on in and see us. We'd love to see you. We don't want to burden them with an in-person visit, but certainly if there's anything that we think, or is there anything there when we see these results that we're concerned about, we'll ask them to come in. So again, that's at 6, 12, and 24 months. Donors after that point have the option of just, hey, every year you really, as every adult needs to, every year we should all be seeing our PCP, just for routine checkups. And I tell donors, look, we have a very low appetite for risk, as I think Sue mentioned. So you're not going to be approved unless you are healthy. And then even if you are approved, we're encouraging you to do all the things that we all should be doing anyway, annual checkups with your PCP. If that donor wants to check in with us every year as well, great. But we leave that up to them after 2 years. We have some donors who are still coming back to us 8, 9, 10 years. That's fine. And others say, you know what, I'm good. I'm comfortable. If I have any issues, I'll reach out to you. So that's kind of generally how we handle that.
Great, thank you. I think that correlates well with the many centers in the country. I know that in, for example, Norway, speaking about Norway, they do a lot of research in the post-donor pool. I don't know if you know Kelly as well, but it's quite interesting. And I think from the donor, at least some donors, I think, are very interested in how they cope, physically and mentally, many years later. Apologize for my not, pronouncing your name. If you were Norwegian, you would be Christine Hinde. So that's the way it would be pronounced. But we're gonna do it the American way, Hind. I wanted to ask you: have you directly or indirectly have you seen anyone or people be inspired by your story to donate? Because it is so powerful.
I can't say that I know anyone directly that has gotten involved since then, but it did spur my phys ed department to start working with some donor organizations and have kids do some research around it, and my school is super supportive, but I don't know that anyone, specifically has been.
So I meant more probably in that sense, in the greater interest in transplantation and donation, and I do know you have students
They love to hear the story. I talked to them yesterday. I'm a public speaking teacher, by the way. I'm the head of the English department. I teach public speaking, okay? So they asked me what I was going to wear and not to be too scary. And then when I told them the pictures that were on, I thought I did good. This is organ donation colors, by the way, right? Green and blue. I said to them, and I have pictures on my slide. They wanted to see them. I said, well, one of them is my kidney. And the one kid goes, oh, awesome. And he looked at it and asked me how much I got paid. And I said, no, that's illegal. I do find that I'm very lucky that I'm able to talk to kids about organ donation, because a lot of them have never heard of it. They didn't know that you could do that and be fine. And I also have now met a bunch of students whose family members have had organs donated to them. They were recipients. And I've also met students whose family members have passed away because nobody matched. So it's always nice to kind of be able to connect with those teenagers in a different way, because they probably have never talked about it with anybody.
Yeah, and now we're having a conversation, but donation to a certain sense is also about altruism in general, right? It's about, and many of you probably have seen this movie Abundant, right? So it translates into probably behavior in general, which we all could benefit from in the world. Anyway, thank you so much for what you've done and what you do. So if we go to Joe, there's a lot of buzz, right, in the news about discarded organs and how we take care of those very precious, gifts, potential gifts of life. What's your view, and how does your organization make sure that transition from the procurement to the transplantation happens?
Yeah, it's very important. And, I think part of the reason that our organization has been able to help to lead, the country in this area, quite a bit, is that we have a world-renowned transplant information center that really does an outstanding job at placing kidneys for transplant. Something that isn't, unfortunately, it's not something that's a national standard for every OPO, but our OPO will always, when we are evaluating a donor, along with the transplant teams, say from Temple, we are always going to make sure that we have a list of patients, whether they, from across the region area, that are approved, cross-matched, ready to go for transplant before, that OR happens and that kidney is recovered. And so that's not actually something that is a national standard. It's something some OPOs will actually begin that process of cross-matching patients after that kidney comes out, and they look at the biopsy and they can do a better assessment. But it's really important that we have that lineup all ready to go before that operating room ever takes place, so that we know that when that kidney comes out, all Dr. Shaven has to do is look at the results and say, okay, we're ready, and we can move right forward. And that practice that we do, we actually have folks that we call them kidney champions that are specifically meant to do that work and to place some of the more challenging kidneys for transplant. So it's something that our Transplant Information Center does a lot of great work on, in our area and nationally. So it's important. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hey, Karen, before we take questions, I'd just like to follow up on
Yeah,
your
for sure.
question and Joe's answer. I think it's important.
Yep.
as far as living donors go, every living donor team, I'll speak for them without their permission. Our job is not to talk people into donation if they reach out to us. Our job is to educate them and help them make the best decision for them and a decision that they're comfortable with. And I think trust and comfort level is so important if people are even considering such an incredible gift. So, if people are interested, I encourage them not to be afraid. We're not solicitors. We're not trying to get your organ. We want to work with you. And again, I think that's an important point. On a personal note, I noticed that I use the word awesome a lot. And I heard it leaking out with Steve and with Sue as well. And that's because I work with living donors every day, and it is awesome, and they are awesome, and the whole process is really great.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Barry Friedman. I'm from the Temple University Hospital Transplant Program. I just wanted to add to Joe and John's comment. We have to follow regulations in how we place organs in the United States. And recently there was a change to where we don't just look at it locally. Just because an individual is gracious enough to donate a deceased donor in Philadelphia, it doesn't mean it's going to stay in the Philadelphia area. So the work that Gift of Life does in about 50 some OPOs in the country, they have a lot of work to do, and getting them on airplanes and transporting them around and getting them to the right recipient. So it's not just that simple of a process, what they described, and they have a lot to get done during that time period. So, you're seeing it in the news right now, and I think it's really important that we advocate, because we have the best distribution process, and I think in the world, but obviously we have room for improvement. And I think the biggest improvement is to hear from our patients, because we in healthcare, you have a voice as well in this. So I really encourage you, when you see it up for public policy, comment, because we want to place that organ to the best recipient with the amount of time that we have to get it distributed.
Thank you for making that point. I really, really appreciate that, because I think there's been a lot of information, and media, as you know, is also putting out articles because they want attention. And I want to say, I want to applaud one of our Transplant Life community managers, Jean Marie, who I think is on virtual right now. She did receive a kidney, and she did write a letter to the editor of the New York Times, and I think it was very important, because some of this information can be very discouraging for donors if you believe that your kidneys or signing up to be a donor, that your organs will not be taken care of properly. So thank you for that comment, and I thank Jean Marie and so many others for raising their voices. Okay, any other questions, virtually or live? Oh, sorry. I'll give you my, here you go.
I just have I want to thank everybody here, all the persons that spoke, because you really encouraged me today. But I especially want to thank you, because my daughter graduated from Central 261, and I'm a retired teacher, so we have a connection.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Kevin?
Kristen, I want to ask you about your donation experience, because my best friend obviously donated the Gift of Life to me, and even though we're best friends, the hospital treated us like we're complete strangers for all the legal reasons. I wanted to ask if you had any experiences, or you want to share with the audience about how that was like to go through this process with someone you know so well, but you have to kind of act like you don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I remember when I talked to John the first time, he said to me, you have a separate team. You have a completely separate team than Amanda does. And you can talk to each other, but we will not talk about you to the other one. So, in fact, I took a long time before I even told Amanda I was in the process. I was so afraid I wasn't going to be a match that I didn't want to get her hopes up. And then I think I was at an appointment with John, and he goes, have you talked to Amanda yet? And I was like, no. He's like, you're getting close to your final yes. Like, you might want to tell her, because there's things that she has to do. And, and she had been ill a number of times. So yeah, it was interesting. It was all up to us to talk to one another. I also was like super grateful that I got the phone call at like 2:00 while I was teaching from John saying I got a yes from the committee. And he literally was like, you can call Amanda and tell her yourself if you want. and y'all can pick the date. And they let me do that, which was incredible, to call her and to pick that date together. So yeah, we were allowed to talk as much as we wanted, but we had completely separate teams, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, any virtual questions? Oh, we have another live.
Question. I see the news a lot, and a lot of times people pass. Do you have anything to do with any of those organs? When, let's say, if they pass and they get to the hospital, and if you do, like, what do they do with those organs? Because the people might not have said anything about being donated or anything like that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we do. So our role starts when the team at the hospital identifies a candidate for donation. So really the number one thing that the general public doesn't know about organ donation is to be an organ donor in the hospital, you have to be on a ventilator, okay? You have to be on a breathing machine. The breathing machine helps to keep those, organs alive, right? While that person is unfortunately passing away, right? It's helping to keep the body alive when that person can't keep their body alive on their own. And so we train the teams in the hospital to look at those patients, do a quick little critical thinking to say, is this someone that could be a potential candidate? And then we ask them to call us at Gift of Life. And so that's when we'll get involved. We'll send someone out to the hospital, and we'll speak with the family if that's someone that is unfortunately a candidate. And so, but it has to happen in the hospital. So something that's important that I always talk about when I talk in the community is, deaths really in the nursing home or at home or on the street in a car accident. The overwhelming majority of those patients cannot be organ donors. Now, some of them could donate other things here and there, tissues, like things like that, but you have to be in the hospital on a ventilator. So, there's that kind of fear and misconception in the community that, if I put donor on my license, the team isn't gonna save my life, right? But it's actually the complete contrary to that, because the team, the EMS has to bring you into the hospital. The team has to take good care of you and give you that life-saving measure of the ventilator, the breathing machine. That's a life-saving measure the team is taking to hopefully save your life. So they actually have to do more to save your life to be an organ donor. So, but yeah, that's kind of how the process can begin to unfold in the hospital. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Leslie? Yeah, one final question.
Yes, one question is, does the Gift of Life educate recipients about how to contact donor families, and similarly work with donor families to educate them about the contact process?
Yeah, so mostly it would be the role of the hospital to educate the recipients, but yes, at Gift of Life, our family care team, they're the ones that are reaching out to the donor families post-transplant and post-donation. And so in that follow-up process, they will talk about connecting with the other side, the recipient side. And so I think Sue mentioned connecting with recipients. And it usually starts with a letter writing program. So if letters are exchanged from one side to the other over the course of so many months or years, then that's how they can eventually meet in person. Now, the one thing that I always like to say about this is sometimes those letters may go a long time without being reciprocated. It's very difficult for someone who's lost somebody to maybe share a letter like that. Or if you're getting that gift, it might be hard to think of something to say to someone. I remember meeting a guy who waited 2 or 3 years before he wrote a letter back, but he kept the letter that he first got on his nightstand, and he read it all the time. It just took him a while to find the words. So it can happen, but it's a little rarer, I think, than people might think. But if you want to share a little bit about the...
No, I think, as Joe said, it's, I would be talking to donors if they're interested and tell them the process, and then the recipient, our recipient, my colleagues who work with the recipients would do the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all three of you, and thank you.